Ben Johnson sends out a message to Caleb Williams to remind him of a challenge from last year. We're going to talk about that 70% completion goal that Ben Johnson still has for Caleb Williams and what it can mean for Caleb Williams taking the next step in his progress, how they can make him an MVP candidate as well. We're also talking about things that Ben Johnson said he needs Rome Odunze to clean up and how him and Caleb Williams can work on their chemistry. All that plus a surprising veteran option that's been projected to go to the Chicago Bears. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Derek Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And we got Ben Johnson reminding Caleb Williams of the challenge from last year. Many people will remember that Ben Johnson coming into the season had a challenge for Caleb Williams to be able to get to the 70% completion goal because he feels like that is the true mark of elite quarterbacks. Not a lot of quarterbacks hit that 70% completion goal, right? And so it's not just a stat, right? I think that you can look at it as just a stat, but I think really when you overall, it's the standard of a elite quarterback. And that's really what Ben Johnson is being here. It's that he is trying to set a standard that would make Caleb Williams elite. A 70% completion percentage would make Caleb Williams elite in that category. And that's to go along with the things that Caleb Williams already does extremely well, right? Like if Caleb Williams gets to that 70% completion goal on top of what we already seen with the big plays, the plays with his legs, the better understanding of how to pick up defenses, those type of things, you're talking about a guy who last year was a 58.1% completion percentage. His rookie year was 62.1%. So that'd be a jump of 12% up. How much more elite? How many more first downs? How many more touchdowns do you think that would mean for the Chicago Bears if Caleb Williams was a 70% guy last year? He said this, Ben Johnson, direct quote, "If we want to be elite, we want to be that 70% maker. We fell short of that. We don't shy away from that. I think when you look at it, for us to get to 65% completion even, cut that in half, we need to find 40 more completions over the course of the season." Well, let me tell you something. When you watch the self-scout, there are 80, 90, 100 completions we left on the table. And I'm not just talking about passes dropped. I love that he said that because one thing that I've seen happen so frequently lately is that it has to be this conversation over, oh, well, Caleb Williams' completion percentage will be better if it's drops. And then the other side of it, well, Caleb Williams is just an inaccurate quarterback. The truth of the matter is you need both those things to be better. And I love that Ben Johnson said, I'm not just talking about drop passes here. We left a lot of stuff on the table. And it has to be the wide receivers and the quarterback, right? You have to have both of that. It is a symbiotic relationship between those two things, right? And so we saw Caleb Williams, I want to be clear, we saw him make huge strides last season after only one season in the NFL, his first season with a real coach and a real offensive coordinator, right? But he still has a way to go before Caleb Williams is truly considered an elite quarterback in the NFL. And that completion percentage is one of them, right? And so, I love that Ben Johnson isn't backing down from that or isn't coming off of that because it could be very easy as, the success that the Bears had last season to say, listen, Caleb was Caleb. We had some success. The offense overall was top 10 offense last year. But you talk about Ben Johnson just saying we left 80, 90, 100 passes on the table last year, and you only need 40 to get to that elite 70% category. If you're talking about that, and you talk about that many passes, like everyone's gonna miss throws, right? Every quarterback has overthrows or underthrows. Every wide receiver core has drops at times, but it's the fact of the percentage of how much that was and how much that combination happened for the Chicago Bears. You talk about Caleb Williams could have easily been in 4,000 yards last year. 4,000 yards passing last year, and probably even more than that. Now, for what it's worth, I want to acknowledge it. Caleb Williams was still 7th overall in yardage last year at 3,942, right? He was right under Trevor Lawrence, the people that were ahead of him. When you look at it, Matthew Stafford led the league last year with 4,707 yards. He had a completion percentage of 65%. Jared Goff was second in the league with a completion percentage of 68% with 4,500 yards. And you had Drake May as well who had 72% completion percentage last year, he hit that mark. As a matter of fact, Drake May was the only quarterback last year to have a 70% or higher, right? The next guy under him was Brock Purdy with 69.4. Oh, and also Mac Jones with 69.6. Shout out to both quarterbacks. 11 games played for Mac Jones, 9 games played for Brock Purdy. Both those guys coming from the San Francisco 49ers, but that's what you have to do. And, Ben Johnson, what he's laying out here for Caleb Williams is the standard that you want. Oh, Caleb wants to be elite. He talked about wanting to be one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. How do you get that done? You have to have elite production to get that done, right? And Ben Johnson's coming here and challenge Caleb Williams to do that from the start, from the onset. And let's see if he can actually hit it in year 3. On top of this being a crucial year that Ryan Poles already said, the extension, they're ready for it. The level of that extension, it's all on Caleb. Ryan Poles even said that, like we're preparing for it. Hey, it's on Caleb to go out there and do it, right? And we have faith that he will. Let's go out there and see that he will. So let me know what you guys think of Ben Johnson talking about still that 70% completion percentage, still having that as something that he wants to hold Caleb Williams to doing, and also saying that, listen, even if they get to 65%, it could be great. But he wants to see Caleb Williams get to that elite category. And I tell you what, I love hearing my head coach challenge our quarterback because, again, that's your franchise quarterback. Go out there and play like a franchise quarterback. But he's not done. Ben Johnson, a guy that is never going to shy away from talking about things. In that same interview, he talked a little bit about Rome Odunze saying this. That's something that we'll talk to Odunze about. I don't think that was a thing for him coming out. I don't want to speak it into existence. That's something as an entire offense we're going to emphasize here in the springtime. Getting back to our fundamentals, back to basics, as simple as it sounds, catching the football is part of that. So, Ben is a motivator as a head coach. And I think everybody kind of realizes that about Ben Johnson now. He finds something to motivate his guys, right? And let's be clear, Odunze was one of Caleb Williams' favorite targets last year. 44 receptions, 666 yards, 6 touchdowns, in only 12 games that he played, right? And we know that when he came back from injury, he wasn't quite the same Rome Odunze. And you want if this Chicago Bears offense, especially now minus DJ Moore, is going to still be an elite offense, right? It's going to be one of those high-powered offenses that push you to the brink every single game like we've seen before. We still need an unquestioned number 1 wide receiver, and that is still something that is up in air between Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, right? Colston Loveland. Probably, I would say that most people would agree is probably Caleb Williams' number 1 target right now as far as production, safety, and all that type of stuff. But Rome Odunze, and I don't like calling it a bounce back year because I think Rome had a really solid season last year, had a touchdown in each of the first 5 games, and then injuries, and he slowed down a little bit after. Now, that's not to excuse things that he needs to be better on. He absolutely has things that he needs to be better on, but will we see a year where now a full season looks like how it started off for Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, right? And I think when you really look at there's a specific stat that really stands out about these, right? Rome Odunze, on average, was thrown to after 3.37 seconds, which is the largest number of all available receivers with more than 3 standard deviations than average. So basically what that means is that it's taking Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze a long time to connect, right? And it is what it is, right? But I think also you can look at it and say that it actually works out for them in some ways because Caleb Williams isn't a traditional quarterback. So it's not like you're drop back throwing. Caleb Williams is extending plays with his legs. It's taking more time with that. He's waiting on the plays to develop, right? Which is something that people kind of want to see him make quicker decisions on, which is a valid thing as well, right? But when you look at the time that it takes quarterbacks to throw, right? And especially when they look at receivers on the side, for example, Matt Stafford to Puka, 2.5 seconds, right? To Higbee, 3 seconds, right? So I think when you look at that, the total then is 2.75 for Matt Stafford when you look at those receivers out on the outside. So, Caleb is taking a little bit more time than that. Now, he's a little bit more mobile in that pocket as well. And I think you have to also, factor in the part of Caleb's game. And then when you look at even on the other side of that, right? Colston Loveland, for example, and DJ Moore, 2.9 seconds for DJ Moore and 3 seconds for Colston Loveland. And we know that he had chemistry with those guys. So I think it's just Caleb just takes a little bit more time. Now, some people could say that they want him to make those quicker decisions, and that's perfectly fine too. But I think you have to break it down in context, contextually, off the way that this offense specifically runs. And there's a lot of times, even with the improved offensive line that we had last year, that Caleb was just waiting for plays to develop. Now, I said this, just a couple seconds ago, but, some of that is we want to see Caleb Williams take the give-me's a little bit more if it's positive yardage and not always wait on making the big plays down the field. But that's still always going to be part of his game. And I think you have to factor that in as just part of the type of quarterback that Caleb Williams is going to be. But, getting that together, taking another year of chemistry. Last year was the first seasons for Luther Burden and Colson Loveland. We know the importance that they have. I think you're going to see Cole Kmet maybe used in the receiving game just a little bit more too as a safety valve there. But that chemistry that we have with Burden, Rome Odunze, Khalif Raymond coming in there, it's going to be important to see how that continues to develop for this team, and we'll see what's going to happen there. Overall, the challenges that are laid out for the wide receiver core and for Caleb Williams are ones that I think every Bears fan are going to understand. If you want to be great, if you want to be elite, you can't hold yourself or just feel comfortable because you had success. You have to always find ways to evolve. The great quarterbacks, the great tandems, the great offense, they find ways to always evolve and to find new wrinkles, find new angles, find new things that help them improve in the margins, even when you're not necessarily making the big splash signings or you're not completely overhauling your offensive philosophies. It's how you improve in those margins and the sustainability of that becomes the makings of how you develop as an offense. So we'll see if that ends up being what happens for the Chicago Bears. So let us know what you guys think on all of that, down below in regards to Ben Johnson and the standard that he's trying to set for his quarterback and his wide receivers. Let me know that down below. But with that said, right, we all know that Tyreek Hill was released by the Miami Dolphins, right? And this is a veteran guy last year, only 265 yards, 1 touchdown last year. He only played 4 games for Miami. He's gone. And there's been now outlets that have reported that the Chicago Bears could be a landing destination for them, as, they need a replacement for DJ Moore. They have a gap there. Tyreek Hill can come in. Here's what I'll say for that. We know what Tyreek Hill has been over the course of his NFL career, right? And I think that I'm not going to act like last season is just the only thing that Tyreek Hill is given, because it's not there, right? And I understand why. And again, this is not even local Bears news. This is kind of more a national thing. Adding a veteran presence when you have now going into his 3rd year Rome Odunze, going into the 2nd year Luther Burden, you do have Khalif Raymond there, but adding a guy in Tyreek Hill that's a veteran presence on maybe a cost-effective deal, you can see, right? And I think Ben Johnson could scheme up Tyreek Hill amazingly well. You look at his speed and all that type of stuff. It is what it is. The availability has been, talking points for a while from him, but he's not the guy as fast as he used to be. He's not, as consistent as he used to be with the health aspect. But the question about it is that would a Tyreek Hill signing up your floor? Now, let's be clear. Tyreek Hill has earned $140 million over his career. He's not getting a ridiculous deal at this point in time at his age. But for what it's worth, SpotRack still has him at his value being about $15 million. Now, for what it's worth, they also predicted Nashawn Wright was going to sign for $16 million per. He didn't sign anywhere close to that, right? So it's not the end-all, be-all. With the Bears being so pressed for cash as they are in this offseason, still needing to create space just to re-sign their draft picks, I don't know if they would be like, they have things that they can restructure contracts, and I wouldn't be surprised if this week we start hearing about restructured contracts leading into the NFL draft. But we just don't have a lot of cap space available to us. So Tyreek Hill would have to be willing to come here and take less. Now, do the Bears stand out for them? The Kansas City Chiefs has also been mentioned as a team that Tyreek Hill can go to. That's a legitimate Super Bowl contender that would make some sense, and a former team. So I think when you look at that, I don't know if it makes sense. The Chargers also were mentioned as a team for Tyreek Hill. That kind of also makes a little bit more sense. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. He had the injury last year. You look at that injury, even if he was a younger guy and not 32 years old, that injury is a huge injury to overcome. So I just don't know if the Bears are at the point where they'd be able to take a risk on it unless it's a completely team-friendly deal. And I just don't see Tyreek Hill taking that to come to the Bears, even though the Bears are an up-and-coming team where he can go to kind of more proven Super Bowl contenders like the Chiefs and the Chargers. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Hearing that, there have been some people that say that Tyreek Hill could make some sense for the Bears to add a veteran presence. Do you like that for the Bears, or do you share some of the same concern I do over it? Let me know that down below. Last talk, defense. Let's get into defense. We got comments from both Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson on what the defense is trying to do next year. Ben Johnson talks about how they're going to try to build off of their takeaways last year, and Ryan Poles talking about the style of defense that they want. Ryan Poles saying this: if you go back to the teams that Dennis Allen has had, specifically the defenses in New Orleans, there's an aggressiveness, there's a violence, and there's a speed to play with. So we're trying to match that. That's part of our evaluation process with the rookie class, prioritizing guys that fit perfectly or that kind of borderline fit and need some development. And then we really try to push aside guys that don't fit. So what do I like to hear about that? Aggressiveness, violence, and speed, right? If that is the moniker, if that is the style of defense, if that is the identity of the defense that we have next year, you've done a pretty damn good job, right? We need violence. We need execution. We need speed. We need to be better at putting pressure on quarterbacks. We need to be able to stop the run game. And so I think that overall, what I'm taking away from Ryan Poles' comments here is that Dennis Allen, and this is me paraphrasing, I'm not trying to, this isn't quotes, right? I read the quote. This is just me now saying my thoughts, is that it feels like Ryan Poles and Dennis Allen had sat down and they had a talk and they realized the defense that we had last year isn't the identity that I want for this defense. It's not the style of defense. We got good players. It's not necessarily about the players, but I want to make sure that we make acquisitions that we can play the style of violence that I want here for the Chicago Bears defense. And it feels like they're going into this process now doing that. We already have talked many times about, like, last year you took care of the offense. This year you plan on taking care of the defense. And you still got some guys in Shamar Turner, Ruben Hippolyte, Zay Frazier that were part of the rookie class last year that hopefully are going to add to that schematically, those type of things. But now the Bears are going into this draft, right? Looking and prioritizing players that are going to bring that violence, that aggressiveness, and that speed that the Bears want to play with next season. And I tell you what, do it. Do it. That's exactly what we need here in Chicago, is that we need a defense with an identity. Takeaways was great. And we'll talk about the takeaways here in a second and Ben Johnson's comments on those takeaways and how they're going to try to build off of that. But this is going to be a draft where Ryan Poles is going to try to go out and now take care of your defensive coordinator and prove that, because that is the next step as well. We can talk about Caleb Williams. We can talk about the wide receivers. They need to make their step. But also this defense has to be a better functional day in and day out defense. You can't rely on just takeaways. You have to have more of an identity than that, because we saw in playoffs, it didn't really work for you, even though I think that we played one of our better games when it mattered the most. We just couldn't get over the hill, right? So you're trying to build off the success that Dennis Allen has had as a defensive coordinator, as a defensive play caller, and you're trying to give him the team. You want that identity shake. We reshaped the offense to feel more like a Ben Johnson offense last year. And granted, you can't take everything all in one offseason. So Dennis Allen had to wait to this offseason to be taken care of. Now go out there and take care of your defensive coordinator. But Ben Johnson's comments adding another layer of this as well. Ben Johnson talked about it. He said this: Al Harris has just got a way of teaching these guys to be in good spot to take the ball away. And so that's been his MO since he was coaching defensive backs in Dallas. And that carried over here. And so that's why I do have confidence, is that he's still with us. I think those guys as an entire unit, I'm talking about Richard Smith and linebackers as well, they're very ball conscious, looking to punch the ball out in any opportunity they get. And we're going to continue to make that the focal point for us, because truth be told, that was a big reason for our success last year, was the ability to take the ball away. So what Ben Johnson is basically saying here is that, listen, the takeaways weren't by happenstance. Yes, we lost our guys in Deshaun Wright and Kevin Byard. A lot of the reasons why we got some of those takeaways, we lost those guys. But I have confidence in the fact that Al Harris is still here, and I've seen the way he coaches. He coaches those guys to understand and be in the right position. So if you're able to keep some of your even if the Bears aren't leading the league in takeaways like they did last year, but you have a more functional defense that has the aggressiveness, the violence, and the speed, you still have Al Harris coaching his defensive backs to be in the right position, to be able to get the takeaways when they need to, and you merge those things together. Even if the Bears fall down from being number 1 in takeaways to being number 10, 11, 12, right? But your defense is taking steps up and being a more functional and better consistent defense, getting to the quarterback, stopping the run, better in coverage, those type of things. You have now mixed and merged both worlds, and that is where your defense can truly be elite if you end up getting the right pieces in here. Now, I'm not expecting the Bears to have an elite defense next year. I would love for us to do. I just want to see us make the necessary steps to be better. Be towards the halfway mark of the league. I think, rather than being bottom in defense, if the Bears were more 15th, 16th last year, we win 2 or 3 more football games. For an 11-win team, that's a lot of fucking football games, right? So if you can get to that spot, build off of that, right? And then you're getting into that area. That's what you want to do. Take care of the offense last year in the draft. Take care of the defense this year in the draft. And then after that, your drafts going forward are just plugging the holes of players that you missed, players that aged out, players that have injuries, players that disappointed. That's where you start getting to a place of really building something sustainable. And that's what the Bears are doing here. And that's why I love hearing the vision that this team has, the coaches, Ryan Poles, everybody, because it seems like they're truly doing the right steps to build something not only that could be good or great, but also is sustainable. Sustainability has to be the name of the game here for the Chicago Bears, and let's see if we can get that done. I think that we can. I hope that we can, and we'll just see what happens here with the Bears, man. But overall, leading into the draft, we're still the guys and us have been talking about, we're probably going to do version 3 of our mock draft, so be on the lookout for that. Version 3 coming for the mock drafts. But it's all geared up, getting ready for the NFL draft. I already got my NFL draft hats for the Chicago Bears in. I'm not going to wear them until the draft, but we got those things coming, and let's see what the Bears can do this offseason, man. Continue it, build off what you did with your acquisitions in free agency, and let's go out here and nail the draft, right? But that's going to do it for today's episode, man. It's good to see the Bears are building. I want to ask you guys some questions. Do you believe that Caleb Williams can get to that next level? How close to that 70% completion percentage target do you think that he can get? Do you think Rome Odunze and him can clean it up as well as the wide receivers overall? And do you think the Bears are making the right moves in the direction of the defense and the identity that they've communicated that they want on the defense? Let me know all that down below in the comment section. If you're on the YouTube side, if you're on the podcast side, I'll tell you how to get your thoughts and comments in. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Otherwise, you can follow us at Shy Bear Central on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.